Good afternoon. Welcome into what is in most places in the Southeastern Conference the dumbest day of the college football season. That is not the case in Columbia, Missouri, where it is Mizzou and Florida coming up at 3 o'clock live on the SEC Network. This is the pregame call on PowerMizzou.com. We will lead you right up to that kickoff, or at least close to that kickoff over the next hour and 15 minutes or so. We're going to check in with Nick De La Torre, who covers the Gators. We're going to talk to Mitchell Forty from the press box at Memorial Stadium. And we're generally going to take your questions, comments, and get you set for kickoff by the end of the day. Either Mizzou or Florida will be headed for a bowl game, and the other one will go into the last week of the season, trying to hope to get there. Both teams come into today 5-5. We're going to talk more about this matchup here in just a couple minutes, but as this show is every single week, this is the pregame call, and we are brought to you by Collin Gentry Law Group in Jefferson City. They can handle virtually any legal situation or question you might have: business law, family law, criminal law, personal injury, wrongful death, anything along those lines. When life is unfriendly, Collin Gentry. You can find them online at callgentry.com or by phone, 573-691-4571. You can schedule a consultation with them through either of those avenues. You could probably send them a letter or just walk in, too, but I would imagine it's easier to go to the website or give them a phone call. Again, 573-691-4571 or online at callgentry.com. Appreciate them being partners with us all year. Just one more left. Today is Senior Day, the final home game of the season, and a number of seniors will go through the ceremony. Not all of them will. There are some that are going to leave that option open. We don't know exactly who or how many. Eli Drinkwitz didn't really let on. We are fairly confident telling you guys that kickoff specialist Sean Ketting is going to take an extra year and could actually also take on punting duties next season for Missouri. With Grant McInnes graduating, he cannot get an extra year. He's already had 6. So, but other than that, we're not sure exactly who could come back and be again a super senior. We know obviously if they came back this year, they can't be. We're pretty confident that Caleb Evans won't. We're pretty confident Tyler Beatty won't. Other than that, we've kind of got to wait and see. Appreciate all the questions and comments, and we will go through some of those here in just a couple minutes. Always just like to kind of give you guys a baseline breakdown of what we're looking at here. And Florida, better offensively, nearly 500 yards a game. They run the ball really well. Run it for 50 yards more per game than Missouri does. Throw it a little better. Emory Jones, the quarterback. Anthony Richardson could be a factor, but it's mostly been Emory Jones lately. Missouri, obviously, with some recent struggles on offense. Florida does turn the ball over a bit. Defensively, Missouri is, for the season, not good, but at least getting better in the last couple weeks. For the season, Florida also not good, also not getting better the last couple weeks. They gave up 40 to South Carolina, then they gave up 52 last week to Samford, which is really what this game is about. I mean, the Gators are a team that a little over a month ago took Alabama to the brink, lost 31-29 in that game, and really had some chances where people thought Florida was going to knock off Alabama. 2 weeks ago, I mean, since then, they've lost a couple. Lost it at Kentucky, kind of a bad showing against LSU. Then got beat by Georgia, which is no shame in that. Then 40-17 to South Carolina, and a 70-52 win over Samford that pretty much nobody but Dan Mullen considered a win. He said you were disrespecting the game if you were upset with that win. There were a whole lot of people disrespecting the game of football because nobody was impressed with Florida against Samford last week. And this game is a lot about what is Florida's give-a-damn level. I mean, how interested are they in playing this game? Nobody really knows. They haven't looked particularly interested in playing the last couple. The defensive coordinator got canned, Todd Grantham, a couple weeks ago. So did So did the offensive line coach. So they made those staff changes. Magically, it did not fix everything for Florida. They're still struggling under Dan Mullen. When we talk to Nick De La Torre, you'll hear, I mean, he thinks if Mullen loses this week or loses next week, then he's out. He's basically got to win these 2 games to save his job. So is that motivation for Florida? We don't really know. I mean, you would think if they were motivated to save their coach's job, they'd have done it at some point in the last 4 or 5 weeks, and they really haven't. So it'll be interesting to see what the Gators bring in here. Again, kickoff at 3 o'clock on the SEC network. We will take you up to, within 15 or 20 minutes of that, certainly. Just depends on how the show goes, to be honest. We are kind of also keeping our eye out. Could be some recruiting news for this afternoon, potentially. We aren't sure. We're just hearing whispers that there could be some recruiting news. So we're keeping our eyes out. We don't really know what it is, but if we're a little distracted at times during the show, it's possible we will have some breaking news for you guys before kickoff. We shall see how that goes. So I do want to make sure to get to some of your guys' comments, and Cam wants to know if we're still predicting Connor Bazelak to start. That is my impression. Nothing has changed in my mind on that front since I said, I think it was Wednesday, I posted, hey, what I'm hearing is that Bazelak's probably going to start and Brady Cook is just going to be ready. That's still my impression. I haven't heard anything to tell me that is incorrect. Now, obviously, we'll see. Anything can happen. I'm pretty confident Tyler Macon is not starting. And if it's not Bazelak, I would think it will be Cook. Last I was told anyway, there hadn't maybe been a hard and fast decision made, but the impression the people I heard from was that Connor Bazelak would start today. I understand that is not really what Missouri fans want to hear. I don't know what to tell you. I don't have any input on that decision. I have been pretty clear the last couple weeks I would probably start Brady Cook. And I thought that Eli Drinkwitz would after Bazelak was pulled with 4.5 minutes to go against South Carolina. Obviously, that is still possible, right? We'll see. But my expectation is that we're going to see Connor Bazelak under center at least to start. Now, what that brings up is, how long's the leash? What are we looking at here for Bazelak? I mean, if he turns the ball over once, are you talking about that's when he gets pulled? Does it depend on the game situation? Does it depend on the score? We don't know any of that, guys. We saw 20 minutes of practice on Tuesday, which included like a little bit of walkthrough, no throws against a defense, and some stretching. So that's the extent of our knowledge at this point in time on Missouri's quarterback situation. Robert certainly hoping that Brady Cook gets the call, and we shall see. Pocket Watch says if someone could have an Uber waiting after the game outside the Gator locker room and on the airport tarmac, Dan Mullen would appreciate it. Yeah, I don't think that Dan is feeling super secure in his spot at the University of Florida right now. I'm not sure how much he cares, to be quite honest. Well, that's not true. I'm sure he cares, but he is a cantankerous individual who is tough to read sometimes, and has gotten a little snarky in recent weeks. But yeah, I think it's entirely possible that if Missouri wins, he gets fired, and I think it's possible it happens, like tomorrow, or potentially even tonight, I guess. Because while beating Missouri and Florida State and finishing 7-5 would not be ideal for Florida, it might buy him another year. You lose at Missouri, you finish 2-6 in the league, or you lose against a bad Florida State team that's your rival, and I think that really changes the calculus in the offseason. Florida would owe him $12 million. if that factors in, I don't really know. Again, we're going to talk to Nick De La Torre about that. He knows a lot more about it than I do. We'll play that interview here for you in just a few minutes from earlier this week. But that is certainly one of the subplots. Another subplot is whether there will be a brawl today. I'm expecting no. The one last year was relatively entertaining. I don't think Dan Mullen wants to incite another one. Trey Williams and Markel Utze, who were the two Missouri players who were most centrally involved, are now playing for Arkansas, so perhaps a brawl would be more likely if it was the Gators and the Razorbacks than the Gators and Missouri today. But we certainly will keep our eyes out and maybe won't turn this game off, before halftime or right at halftime like we would have in some games. Let's see. Ron says, if Bazelak is in fact the guy again today, obviously I'm rooting for him. But it doesn't make sense to me. The guy's confidence looks shot, and he can't or won't run. Yeah, I agree with both those things. I mean, I think it's in Connor's head at this point. I think the confidence is clearly an issue. Whatever the injury is, it had been reported at one point hamstring. Connor won't say. He just says leg. But that's clearly an issue, and it's not like he was running much before then. So I agree with all those things. Okay, I'm not going to stand on the table and tell you that I would start Connor Bazelak today, but I am going to tell you that's what I think Missouri is going to do. Todd says, I'm calling it again. Beatty is going for 200 rushing. He could. He might have to, because he is certainly Missouri's first and second and maybe third option on offense. We had this discussion earlier this week. Without Tyler Beatty, I would say Missouri's probably 2-8. I think they beat SEMO, and I think they probably beat North Texas. I don't think they'd have another win. I certainly don't think they'd have an SEC win. I mean, maybe they would have beaten Vandy, but, given the defensive issues in that game, I don't feel confident saying it. 200, certainly a possibility. Let's see. Keep on rolling through some of these. Todd says, why is Cook doing interviews during the week if he's not going to start? I don't know. I appreciate it. We were stunned, honestly. We requested all three quarterbacks, but we've done that for about 4 weeks in a row. And we were stunned when they gave us both Brady Cook and Connor Bazelak on Tuesday. I was very, very surprised to see both those kids doing interviews, to be quite honest. But we appreciated it. I wrote a story about it on, I guess it was Wednesday night. And, Cook kind of embraced the competition and says that it has increased this week. Bazelak kind of seemed to act as if there was not a competition, to be quite honest, which is certainly is right. And I understand in his situation why he would do that, but I just found it interesting. Let's see. Keep on rolling through. True Blue says it still makes no sense not to use Macon situationally. Yeah, but you are up against the red shirt now. I mean, he can play in one more game. And look, again, if Eli Drinkwitz thinks that playing Tyler Macon is going to be the difference between winning and losing a game, then yes, he should play him. But I just don't know that he feels that way. I mean, I think it's pretty obvious at this point he doesn't feel that way. So do you burn the red shirt for like 3 snaps against Florida and Arkansas? I certainly wouldn't. I understand the infatuation with Macon, but the simple fact is he's the third quarterback on this team right now. I think if they thought they could win a game, then they would probably play him. And I think they just don't think he's the difference between winning and losing a game. I really think it's that simple. So let's see. Keep on rolling. Yeah, it looks like we are caught up mostly on the comments. Well, T-Rise says he wants to imagine Drinkwitz and Mullen coming to blows. That would be entertaining. It would be entertaining. I am not going to necessarily root for it, obviously, but it would be entertaining. It would be a hell of a story. I still frequently talk about Mike Anderson and Frank Haith almost going at it at midcourt at Mizzou Arena. It would be a story. Dan wants to know, how does the defense match up with the Florida rushing attack? I mean, they haven't matched up with many rushing attacks at all this season. They did a nice job against South Carolina, but South Carolina doesn't run the ball very well. Florida does. At this point, you got to give the edge to Florida because everybody has had the edge against Missouri in that regard. So want to give you guys, as we do on this show every week, once again, the Colin Gentry pregame call. Every week we talk to somebody who knows the opposition a little bit better than I do. And this week, that is Nick De La Torre from GatorsTerritory.com. We're going to play this conversation that I had with Nick on Thursday afternoon, previewing Mizzou and Florida. We'll be back, take some of your questions, look around the SEC, catch up with Mitchell Forty, all that. The Florida site on the Rivals Network. Nick, how you doing today, man?
Doing well. It's cold here in Gainesville. It's cold as, of course, anytime it gets under 70.
Right.
That's when the jackets and Uggs come out in Florida.
Yeah, had to be some sleeves on your shirts today and all that. We feel terrible for you here in Columbia, but weather not a factor, much to the chagrin of Eli Drinkwitz. Probably, I think that's way too big of a deal. It's not like Florida's never signed a kid who's played in cold weather or rain before. I think people make too big of a deal of that. Bigger deal is I think this game comes down to one thing, like, does Florida still care? Are they still bought in here? Because watching the last couple of weeks, it's been tough to tell at times.
Yeah, watching a lot of the games this year, it's been tough to tell. I've been asked that a lot, and I think I think I want to say the team. I get asked a lot, has Dan Mullen lost the locker room? And I don't think he has, because I think Florida, and it might be a lame argument, but I think Florida could have rolled over to Samford, going into the halftime, losing. Could have just, the players could have thought, well, listen, you've got 2.5 games left, guy, and I don't really care if we lose this game because you're out of here if we lose it. And could have, really thrown up a goose egg in the second half, but they came out and they played well. And I understand the opponent, but I don't think Florida's, at least the team, has gone apathetic yet. There's definitely parts of the fan base that sure have, that might not watch the game this weekend.
Yeah, well, the weird thing to me is it's not like it's been one side of the ball, right? I mean, 2 weeks ago against South Carolina, the defense was bad in that game, but they didn't really move the ball. They score 17 points, and then last week they put up 70, and I understand it's Samford, but it's still 70, but the defense can't do anything. So can you even kind of identify, hey, the major problem with this team is this, or is it a little bit widespread?
I mean, there were 15 penalties in a close game at Kentucky. There was just a complete meltdown against LSU. Georgia was clearly better. There's been interceptions. That's been the reason. There really hasn't been. It's almost you can roll a 6-sided die, and one of those 6 things is going to pop up for Florida to cause them to either lose the game or to cause them to struggle in the game. But you don't know which one it's going to be. And I've asked Dan Mullen about that a couple times. Hey, would you rather just, if your team was really undisciplined and you knew they were going to have 8 false starts a game, and you could just work on that every week, rather than you go into a game knowing I'm going to have one of these 6 to 7 problems pop up, and I don't know which one it's going to be until the game happens. So I've asked him that multiple times. Is that even worse? And he's given some coach speak answers, but that's really the struggle for Florida, is that they have 6, 7 things that have caused them to lose games, and you just don't know which one's going to pop up that week, whether it's the defense giving up 42 points to an FCS opponent. I've seen some highly penalized Florida teams, but they had 8 false starts against Kentucky. That's a nice place to play. I don't know if it's 8 false starts loud. I don't know what stadium is 8 false starts loud, but yeah, that's been an issue for Florida. And maybe it just comes down to them not being a very disciplined football team.
Right. And to me, that's kind of, you can say the same thing about Missouri. You can say the same thing about almost any team that's sitting here 5-5, right? You've got, hey, one game it's the running game, one game it's the pass defense, one game, you miss 4 field goals, whatever. That's why you're 5-5, because you've got all these issues that keep popping up. Is there anything for Florida that that you feel like they can rely on that has been consistent?
They should be able to run the ball. And coming into the year, I gave Dan Mullen a lot of credit because obviously, if you watch Florida in 2020, they had no interest in running the ball. Didn't really need to with Kyle Pitts and Kyle Trask. That passing offense was prolific. Coming into this year, the writers we were talking and we're looking at Emory Jones and Anthony Richardson. We're thinking those guys aren't Kyle Trask, but they can both really hurt you with their feet. And then you look at Florida's backfield. They had 2 senior running backs and Malik Davis and Damian Pierce coming back, 2 5-star transfers in Lorenzo Lingard and Demarcus Bowman, and another guy in Naquan Wright, a redshirt sophomore who looks to be a very good running back as well. And we thought this team's going to have to run. And credit to Dan Mullen, he changed his offense from one of the best passing offenses to, I think the Florida's ranked 3rd now in the SEC in rushing. So a completely different shift. The problem is you look at that, and South Carolina was a team that couldn't stop the run, and Florida comes out and throws the ball 10 straight times. You're almost trying to outsmart yourself, I guess, in that scenario. And other than last week, Missouri hasn't been able to stop, a nosebleed with a roll of paper towels. And I point this out to Gator fans, and they go, "Oh, cool, Dan's going to throw the ball 25 straight times." So if you look at what Florida does well, they run the ball well. If you look at what Missouri hasn't done well, they don't stop the run. You'd think, fly to Columbia, it's going to be cold. Just hand the ball off 60 times. And if that doesn't work, then you lose because of that. But we'll see if Dan tries to be the smartest guy in Columbia on Saturday, or if they lean into what they do well, which is running the football.
Yeah, it's odd. I mean, Missouri, I think, has risen all the way to they're only 124th in run defense now because they've actually done a pretty good job against it the last couple weeks. I mean, gave up 168 against Georgia and then really held South Carolina way down. And South Carolina is not a great offense, but they were coming off that performance against Florida. But I'm still with you. I mean, the approach against Missouri is still, hey, turn around and hand the ball off 45 times and see how it goes. So it'll be interesting. Other side of the ball, I mean, Missouri's got quarterback issues, right? We're not 100% sure who's going to start at this point. And Connor Bazelak's biggest strength coming into this year was, hey, he's not going to beat you. He doesn't turn the ball over. Well, now all of a sudden he's turning the ball over. I mean, I would think that going off the 3 quarters I watched last week, maybe if you're a struggling quarterback, this isn't the worst defense to face. But, I mean, Florida's pass defense can't be that bad, can it?
Florida's defense, I go back to the week 3 game against Alabama, and Florida was more physical on both lines of scrimmage than Alabama. And that was really surprising, I think, to us, because watching the first 2 games against FAU and USF, you're looking at Florida and you're thinking, well, is this fool's gold? Like, Zach Carter's got six sacks in 2 games, and Florida's running the ball over, at will. And I thought after the Alabama game, even in a loss, I was like, well, all right, well, this Florida team might be better than I thought they were going to be coming into this year. That certainly has not proved to be the case. And I haven't seen that defensive line. Florida's lost their best linebacker, their best run stopper, and kind of the heart of their defense in Ventrell Miller before the season. So the linebacking core is young. The secondary is very young outside of Trey Dean and Kyrie Elam. So they really leaned on the defensive line to get pressure, and Florida was getting pressure with 4, which allowed them to drop people in coverage, and that was a recipe for success. The last 6 weeks, probably, I haven't seen that same defensive line. There's been 1 or 2 injuries, but for the most part, it's the same guys that were, bigger and badder than Alabama that, can't get a push against a pretty bad South Carolina team, or can't get a push against a Samford team, who plays the division down. So the big thing for Florida is being able to get pressure on the quarterback, to give those guys, and I guess they're not young anymore in the secondary, going into it week 11. But that's the key for Florida. Can they get pressure with 4, or do they have to blitz and then put some guys on islands outside?
So, hey, game for the coveted 4th place in the SEC East. The winner knows, at least at a bare minimum, they will be invited to Birmingham the week after Christmas. And I don't think either one of these teams started the season saying, hey, if we could just get to a minor bowl game, it's a success. Florida's obviously a little bit more disappointed in where it sits than Missouri is. I mean, is that any sort of motivation for Florida? Do you think that, hey, if we win two, like maybe we get to a bowl game, we can still salvage something out of this?
I mean, for a team coming off of 3 New Year's Six bowl games, I wonder how many opt-outs Florida would have to be, playing in Birmingham on December 27th or 28th. Um, I'm personally, as a big fan of Nashville, I've been crossing my fingers for the Music City Bowl. That'd be a nice
Yeah.
treat for the media.
We were
after
supposed to go
going
there
through
last
really.
year, and then COVID canceled that. So, yeah.
Oh, that's a kick in the face right there. um, I don't know. So I think Florida will have a bunch of guys that would opt out of the bowl game. They did last year, even in a good bowl game. They had a bunch of guys opt out. So for me, I'm not sure how excited the older guys would be. The big thing, obviously, and you've probably talked about it before with bowl games, is just getting the chance for those bowl practices. And Florida didn't really get that chance last year because of COVID and everything they had gone through. Florida practiced maybe 4 times before the Cotton Bowl, way less than they could have. I think the big thing for Dan, if he's going to stay here, if he's going to be the coach in 2022, is getting to a bowl game so you have time to work with those younger guys, the guys that will be here next year, that if you're back in 2022, you're definitely coaching for your job. So you need to start finding and identifying players and creating that identity. So I think that's the biggest thing for Florida now, regardless of what bowl it is. It could be the toilet bowl or whatever it's called, whatever corporate sponsor wants to throw you some money. You really need to start identifying the young players that you're going to count on for next year. So that's the big thing for Florida in a bowl game.
Yeah, so you kind of alluded to it, and I'm sure I'll be the first person to have asked you this question all month long. But, I mean, 3 weeks ago, people started saying, hey, is Dan Mullen in trouble? And I thought, well, they're going to beat South Carolina and Samford and Missouri and Florida State and finish 8-4. So probably not, right? Well, then that South Carolina thing happens and Florida happens. Or Samford happens. Is he, are these next 2 games, do you think, for his job? Does he have to go 1-1 or 2-0 or whatever it is? Or do you think the decision's kind of made independent of, hey, whatever you do against Missouri and Florida, bad Florida State team?
Yeah, no, I don't think 1-1 will do it. I don't think 1-1 will do it, especially if the trip to this Columbia looks like the trip to last Columbia. He might be left in Missouri if you have a game like that. I tried to figure it out. So all week before the LSU game, I'm talking to my friends who cover the team, and I'm like, how are you guys? How is LSU about to fire a national championship coach 18 months after? And then they start kind of layering things. Well, this is happening, and this, and then this. So after Florida lost to South Carolina, the way that they did, and listen, if Florida loses on a last-second field goal, people are going to be mad. But you can point to things and hey, we made a couple mistakes and just barely lost the game. But Florida was not competitive against South Carolina. And I think that changed Scott Strickland's mind. So I went after the game and I tried to figure out, okay, 1 year ago, Florida had just beat Georgia. They were ranked number 5 in the country. They had a Heisman candidate, the future John Mackey winner, and one of the most exciting players in Kadarius Toney. How have we gotten to this point now? I laid it out in a story, and it took me 4 hours, and it was 2,300 words. But when you read it and you look at everything, not independent of itself, but stacked on top of each other, you think, okay, well, that makes sense. And how you get to a point where a coach, when he first got here after his first 2 years, we're comparing to Urban Meyer and Steve Spurrier, and now he's in the same breath as flaming out like Will Muschamp and Jim McElwain. So it's been a pretty spectacularly quick fall from grace, and I think Dan Mullen needs to win this week in Columbia and needs to beat FSU next week to be the coach next year.
All right, so you correct me if I'm wrong on this. I've rarely been in the same room with Dan Mullen, but there are some guys when if they lose, they can talk their ways out of it a little bit, right? Your personality is you can be salty and win. You can be a great guy and lose maybe, but you can't be salty and lose. And the perception from the outside is Dan Mullen's personality probably isn't going to be the thing that saves his job. I know Missouri fans feel that way after, went down in Gainesville last year. Like, I don't mean to say just, hey, being a nicer guy or winning a press conference would necessarily save his job, but how much, especially with fans, is that part of it kind of playing into, oh, hey, this guy is losing it, and here's all these other things we can pile on about?
Well, it's interesting because when he was winning, 23 games in his first 22 games in his first 2 years, he was saying the same things, but he's winning. And now fans are saying, oh man, we got a young Spurrier because this guy will barb you and he'll, give the media a zinger and this is great. And fans all year have asked me, hey, is Dan checked out? Is he doing this? I'm like, no, you're hearing him differently because when you're doing what he does and saying the things he says, it's awesome when you're a fan and you're winning. Now you think he's arrogant and he's cocky and he's checked out and he doesn't care. He wants to go to the NFL. And I'm like, all that's changed is that he's losing football games now. Like Dan Mullen hasn't changed as a person since he's been here. And personally, we like it. He called one of the reporters, Trent Krim, last week because they asked if a win was disappointing, and if you're a Ted Lasso fan, you get the reference. But I think Dan is cocky. I think he's arrogant. I think he's the smartest guy that's been in every room that he's ever been in. And that's certainly the case when he's doing media. He's definitely smarter than the rest of us in that room. But I think that can come to bite you in the butt when it comes down to having to make decisions. And you look at the guys that he's surrounded himself and his coaching staff and how Florida's getting beat on the recruiting trail. And so fans are tiring of the act. And I wonder, and we've talked about it a bunch, like amongst us in the media, what it would take to get them back, because Dan hasn't changed, but the way his words are being perceived by the fan base now certainly has done a 180.
Yeah, it's fascinating because Missouri fans have made the Spurrier comp a little bit with Eli Drinkwitz here, right? I mean, he's very similar. I remember talking to somebody at Missouri literally before he had coached a game, and they said, what do you think of him? I said, well, like, he's going to be really fun to cover. And if he wins and wins pretty big, it's going to be great. But if he doesn't win pretty big, like, that is going to at some point start rubbing people the wrong way, right? Missouri fans aren't there yet. The honeymoon is not still ongoing, but we're not at the point of like being angry yet. But
you're in the airport on the way back from the honeymoon.
Yes. It is okay. Next year we need to see this translate a little bit more. But it's funny, and I've told people the same things, right? Winning coaches can't say anything wrong, and losing coaches can't say anything right. I mean, even the whole, hey, it's not recruiting season. Everybody who actually watched that knew what Dan Mullen meant. And then everybody took it and made it seem like it meant something else because he lost a game.
Yeah, and Florida fans are not happy. The big thing for Florida is in our state, you have the big three schools, and then Alabama, Georgia, Clemson. Everyone tries to come down in Florida, but when Florida's doing well, in the past, when Urban Meyer was recruiting well, when Will Muschamp was even recruiting well on the defensive side of the ball, Florida was doing well on the field. Miami and Florida State were down, and they were able to take advantage of that. And that's a huge issue with Florida fans right now, is that Florida's on our site 35th in the country. You're behind, South Carolina. You're behind FSU, which hasn't been to a bowl game in 3 years. So fans look at what's happening on the field, then they look what's happening off the field, and then there's nothing you can even hang your hat on to say, okay, well, it'll get turned around. Because you look at this recruiting class and you say, it'll get turned around with who and with what? And then what's the next class? And the problem at Florida is you're always going to be looking at Georgia, and Kirby's on his way to his 5th #1 recruiting class in 6 years. And to rub salt in the wound, he's had 3 kids flip from Florida in the last month. So Dan's not winning fans on or off the field right now.
Yeah, so I never ask for predictions on this show because it just gets us in trouble. I do want one prediction. Are we lucky enough to get another fight this year? I feel like it probably won't happen, but I was a big fan. That was by far the best thing that happened in last year's game.
Yeah, I think Darth Mullen won't show up for this game. I don't think we'll get a fight, and it'll be interesting because I think it's two teams that, maybe Missouri wants to go to a bowl game more than Florida does. A couple of Florida guys have talked about the cold. I'm going to be cold, and the press box is closed. So I'll still be in a jacket. I think the best thing that happened to Florida is that it wasn't, an 11 a.m. local kickoff. Because they struggle in Vanderbilt at 11 a.m. local kickoffs when it's a little bit cold in September. Going to Columbia, Missouri in November at 11 a.m. when it's, there's still frost on the ground. I don't think Florida would have played very well. So, like I said, I think Florida needs to run the ball. If they can do that, I don't know that they have an answer for Tyler Batty. I think Tyler Batty will break a record on Saturday. I know that he broke or already owns the record for most 200-yard games for Missouri. He could easily run for 200 yards on this Florida team, which even when it looks like it's trying to tackle, doesn't do it well. And then there's times where they look like they're making business decisions and aren't interested in tackling.
Right. Well, Nick, appreciate it, man. Bring your winter coat, bring a stocking cap. We'll do our best. We're going to heat it up to like at least 50, I think. So. All right, so that was Nick De La Torre. He covers the Florida Gators for GatorsTerritory.com. That is the rival site. You can kind of get the opposing perspective from there if you are interested in it. But if you only want the Missouri perspective, just hang out here with me for another 30, 40 minutes before the game. We are here on the pregame call presented by Call and Gentry Law Group. When life goes wrong, Call and Gentry. You can find them online at callgentry.com. You can get in touch with them at 573-691-4571 and schedule a consultation for any sort of legal questions, comments. Well, they probably don't want your comments. Probably just questions or concerns you might have. So want to take a look at what is happening elsewhere in the SEC here in just a minute. And the truth is, not much. This is that week where everybody plays terrible games that nobody really cares about in the SEC. There were a whole bunch of 11 a.m. games against FCS competition, and I'm updating scores right now. We're going to flash those up in just a minute. None of them are competitive, and none of them are exciting. It is like sacrificial lamb day here in the SEC. We'll take a look at those if I can figure out which button to push. Here we go. So Georgia is destroying Charleston Southern. A&M already destroyed Prairie View. Mississippi State up 52-10 on Tennessee State. Kentucky hammering New Mexico State. That is not technically an FCS game, but it might as well be. Arkansas and Alabama get underway here in 20 minutes. Auburn, South Carolina tonight is a good game. Vanderbilt, Ole Miss is not. South Alabama, Tennessee is not. Louisiana, Monroe, LSU is not. So Arkansas, Alabama, Auburn, South Carolina, Missouri, Florida, the only three really competitive SEC matchups so far today. And if you didn't see it during that interview, Eli Drinkwitz did tell Chris Trevino, apparently on the pregame radio show, as tweeted by Dave Matter, that Connor Bazelak's starting at quarterback. So what we had heard earlier this week was accurate. Connor Bazelak will be the starter. Does that mean he's the only guy who plays? Does that mean he doesn't get pulled? Obviously, we don't know. But Connor Bazelak is going to be Missouri's starter against Florida today, which is, I find it interesting. I'm not sure that that's the way I would go, but I don't, excuse me, I don't get paid $4 million to make that decision. So that's the way it goes. Dr. Sanitary wants to know, if Bazelak throws a pick in the first half, what do you think should happen? Short leash. Yeah, I mean, probably, right? If he puts you in a bad spot, I think you got to pull him. But if he's one play away from getting pulled, then are you starting the right guy to begin with? I mean, I almost think if you start Bazelak, you just say, hey, he's the guy, unless we get in a situation where the quarterback has to run. Now, again, if you're playing Bazelak all game and you pull him on the last drive of the game or something, if you need to run, to me, your starting quarterback is the guy that plays as long as he is able to play. So I wouldn't, if I was going to yank him after one interception, I don't really think I'd probably be starting him to begin with. But Drinkwitz is starting him. That's the direction they're going to go. And we will see how it goes. Now, here's what I think will be interesting is if he throws a pick, that crowd is going to boo. If they go 3 and out, the crowd may boo. If he throws an incompletion, the crowd may boo. And I am not advocating that Eli Drinkwitz should pick his starting quarterback based on crowd reaction or what fans want or what Twitter wants. He shouldn't. But I think you have to be aware when you're dealing with a kid whose confidence has to be shook. I mean, it has to be after the last few weeks. He is a different quarterback than he used to be. And those 2 interceptions last week, I still don't know what the plan was on either one of them. I don't know where either ball was going. And so putting a guy out there, it almost feels to me like he's putting him out there in a situation that he set up to fail a little bit. But, again, it's not my call. So we shall see how it goes. T-Rise said, who would pull a QB on the last drive of the game? Oh, wait. I really thought that was a move that Drinkwitz couldn't take back. Like when he put Brady Cook in the game, I thought that signal – I honestly didn't think Connor Bazelak would ever start another game here. He's not only starting another game, it's the very next game. So obviously I don't know what the hell I'm talking about because – Connor Bazelak is Missouri's starter today. We showed you the SEC scores from today, and not much of interest. Here is what is going on in the rest of in the standings. Georgia has already clinched the division in the East. Tennessee can get second if Tennessee wins its last 2 league games. I feel like that's not right. I feel like maybe I made an error on these standings. I got to check and see if Tennessee is actually supposed to be 4. Tennessee is supposed to be 3 and 4. That is my mistake. So Kentucky has clinched second place. Tennessee, if it beats Vanderbilt next week, is going to finish 3rd in the East. I mean, you don't really necessarily get a prize for finishing 3rd in the East or anything, but they would be 3rd in the East because even if Mizzou were to win the last 2 and catch Tennessee, Tennessee has the tiebreaker. Mizzou with a win today over Florida would clinch, finishing ahead of South Carolina and Florida. That's basically what's at stake for Missouri. I mean, you get no prize for finishing 4th in the SEC East either, but it would be better than finishing 6th. And if Missouri were to win today, Florida would finish 6th, and Missouri would finish no worse than 4th. So there's your East standings. Over in the West, Alabama needs one more win to lock it up, whether that is today against Arkansas or next week against Auburn. Because Alabama has already beaten Ole Miss, Alabama will win the West if it wins today. Now, I described chaos theory earlier this week. If Alabama were to lose today to Arkansas and lose next week to Auburn, and then Auburn beats South Carolina tonight, and Mississippi State beats Ole Miss in the Egg Bowl, and Texas A&M beats LSU, then there is legitimately a 6-way tie at 5-3 in the SEC West. That is not going to happen. Alabama's going to win at least one of these last 2 and win the West. But that would be the chaos theory version of what could potentially happen. Before we talk to Mitchell Forty here in a few more minutes, I want to get to some of your comments. SBF Aviation says, got to win today, need that bowl game. And it is... I don't want to overstate the difference between finishing 5-7 and 6-6, right? 6-6 is still not a phenomenal year, but you do get 2 more weeks of practice. And I think even more important than practice is you're going to have recruiting visits the weekend of December 4th and December 11th, and you can bring those kids in and they can actually see you preparing for a bowl game rather than visiting somewhere, say, on that weekend of December 4th, and they visit somewhere in that team, whether it's Tennessee or Kentucky or whoever you're recruiting against. That team is preparing for a bowl game and then coming to your campus on December 10th, and you don't have any practices. So I think it's valuable in that regard. And, again, hey, the kids, the fans, everybody wants another game. So, yes, making a bowl game, whether it's in Birmingham, whether it's the Duke's Mayo Bowl, whether it's potentially like the Music City Bowl where you didn't get to go last year, maybe the Texas Bowl again. I think those are the ones that would probably be in play. It would be good to get that game. It would also maybe be good to prevent Florida from getting that game, or at least put yourself ahead of Florida in the pecking order if both of you end up in that game. Cam wants to know over-under on 30 touches for Tyler Beatty today. It's a big number, but I go over. I mean, he's had more than that in quite a few. This is a game that I think Missouri's gonna pull out everything to win. So, yeah, I actually would put Beatty over 30 touches today. Freeway Jared wants the most violent game possible in Tuscaloosa today. 6 days rest after wrestling with the Tide might be beneficial against Arkansas next week. It's a fair point. Let's see. Stewart accuses me of always looking for a brawl. That's fair. I mean, it's enjoyable. Texas apparently got beat. I got a question for you guys. What if Texas's bad years aren't actually even better than Missouri's bad years? That's something to ponder for the Lost Dodds. Dan wants to know if Mizzou goes to a bowl game with a 5-7 record. They probably do. I don't think it's locked. I have not studied APR and what the pecking order is. Missouri would be eligible at 5-7 if there are not enough eligible teams. And I think that's probably going to be the case. I think you're probably not filling that with 6-6 teams. So I think Mizzou would be eligible. Would they get a spot? I don't know that for sure. But I think they'd probably make one, but it would be one of those non-SEC bowls against – I mean, literally, I saw one projection that has them playing Eastern Michigan. I honestly think Missouri should take the bid and get the practices, and then like the day before say, sorry, we got COVID issues. We can't play Eastern Michigan. Cam Cameron says that Caleb Evans is not participating in Senior Day because he was honored last year at Tulsa. Safe to say he's not coming back. Yeah, I mean, Caleb Evans was never going to come back. He said from day one, like he was here for 1 year. And, like, I actually somewhat understand that from Evans' point of view. Like, you know, he came here for 1 year. I think ultimately he's remembered as a Tulsa football player to me. And so if he doesn't want to go through a ceremony here where he only spent 1 year, I don't have a huge issue with that. That's okay. That's his choice, you know. But, yeah, I don't think he's coming back. I don't think Tyler Beatty's coming back. There's quite a few guys that I don't think are coming back. Let's see. P. Richards says Eastern Michigan taking shots out of nowhere. Yeah, I'm not a big Eastern Michigan guy. They did have Charlie Batch, though. I saw him play at Furrow Field one day. Which Tiger is the most likely to throw double haymakers like Utsi at Florida last year? That's good. I don't know offhand. One of the guys earlier this week told us Chad Bailey was the biggest trash talker on the team, so it's certainly possible. But, like, I don't want to throw Chad Bailey under the bus. He seems like a good kid. I'm not saying he would do that. But I think almost certainly it would be a defensive player. You know, back in the day, this question would have been easy to answer. Chase Kaufman all the way. Like, that dude got in a fight at practice once a week. So I would have said him in the past, but yeah, on this team, it's got to be a defensive guy, and I'm going to go Bailey just because somebody told us he liked to talk trash, but that's not a commentary on Chad Bailey at all. You know, he's, like I said, he seems like a good dude. Dan says the guess would be that Missouri, or there'll be desperate bowl teams, and Missouri would be a big name for a team that qualifies at 5-7. Not that it's all that good, and yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. So we are going to talk to Mitchell Forty here. He's going to call in the next few minutes. And just to kind of set the scene for what we know that Connor Bazelak is starting at quarterback. We do not necessarily know that he's finishing, but we know that he is starting. We also know apparently that Hiron White is not going to be available. We do not at this point know what the recruiting news that we teased at the beginning is, but hopefully we will find out before we go off the air. Don't know that for sure. Cam says, I'm surprised that Sean Robinson isn't one of the guys sitting out of the senior ceremony. I mean, I don't know. Sean's in his 5th year of college. He's already transferred. He's changed positions. He's hurt. Like, coming back for a 6th year when he's probably not going to be an NFL guy next year any more than he is this year. I mean, I think a lot of times we fail to appreciate how much time and effort this takes from these kids. You know, I mean, it's a lot of work, and it's a big time commitment. You know, and so if a kid says, hey, coming back next year isn't going to make me an NFL player, then I've got absolutely no issue with a kid. And I'm not saying it, Cam, I know you're not saying you have an issue, but it really doesn't surprise me that kids say, I'm kind of ready to get on with my life, whatever that may be. I could see Sean Robinson making a heck of a football coach if that's what he wanted to do. I mean, just his attitude, the way he's always dealt with people, things like that, you know, then I think that's a path he could go down. P. Richards is saying, how do you not know what the recruiting news is? I mean, like, because we don't know who it is. I mean, we're hearing some talk of a commitment. Somebody told me to keep my eyes open, but that's it. I mean, like, unless the kid tells us, and we're just, at this point, we're not sure who it is. So that's how we don't know. It's not like the coaches pick up the phone and call us and tell us, hey, yo, this kid's committing. I mean, that's not how this works. So when we find out, we will find out. You know, and that's quite likely won't be until the kid goes public with it. If it's a kid who's on a visit right now, I don't know. That may be later tonight. That's just that's all I'm saying is we're hearing rumors, but we don't know who it is. That's my point on recruiting. And also, like, you know, again, we like to let these kids make their announcements. So we like to alert you guys that, hey, we're hearing something could happen. But, you know, recruiting is kind of like a male soap opera, and we deal in a lot of rumors. And so we'll see where it goes as the day unfolds. And if something does happen, we certainly are going to keep you guys informed and all that. So Mitch just texted me that he is going to, let's see. Mizzou cornerback Caleb Evans is wearing street clothes on the sidelines. Looks like, excuse me. Hey, guys, this is live broadcast. Sorry about that. But Mitchell has tweeted that cornerback Caleb Evans is wearing street clothes on the sidelines and looks like he will not play today. Ennis Rakestraw and Ish Burdine are already out. Sean Robinson at safety. Chris Sheeran at nickelback is out. So it looks like Chris Abrams-Drain, Allie Green, and maybe Stacy Brown at the nickel. That is a significant issue against Florida. So this whole game has just honestly, I think it's kind of changed with Caleb Evans out. Look, Florida can throw the football. And so if you're talking about moving Chris Abrams-Drain from slot to corner where he's been pretty good in the slot, then that really kind of changes Missouri's entire defense, I think. And I think that changes this, no question. And so now we're gonna bring Mitch in, and we'll continue that conversation. And Mitchell Forty joining us from Faroe. And so, Mitch, I was just telling them what you all tweeted, that Caleb Evans is out. To me, that's a significant change in this game. I mean, you're talking about a Florida team that, I know it was Samford, but Emory Jones threw 6 touchdown passes. Missouri now basically without, its top 2 corners.
Yeah, no, I think that's significant as well. Missouri's going to be very, very thin at cornerback. You're going to have Probably a Caleb Evans, or sorry, Caleb Evans out. You're going to have Chris Abrams, Drain, and Alec Green, I would think, starting out wide. And then they've got a lot of guys who play that nickel position route as well. Chris Sheeran's not going to be playing. Sean Robinson's not going to be playing. So I'm guessing maybe you put Stacey Brown at that nickel spot. And I think DJ Jackson, as your reference, going to have to be called on to play quite a bit as well.
So that's what I was going to say. What if, because I think Chris Abrams-Drain has been really good in that slot corner. What if you keep him there and you just play DJ Jackson out wide? I mean, is that better than Stacey Brown at the? It may not be better, but that's the way I might go.
Yeah, that's possible. And it also might depend on personnel. Obviously, when Florida has a little bit heavier personnel, you might put Stacey Brown in there because he is more of a kind of strong safety type. Versus when Florida's trying to spread you out, you might put Chris Abrams back in the slot and more of a corner like DJ Jackson out wide. So I could see them doing a little bit of both. But yeah, I mentioned Chris Abrams out wide just because that's what they've done in the past. I think it was maybe the Vandy game when they had some injuries at corner.
So to be clear, we don't know the reason at this point that Caleb Evans is in street clothes, right? Because he was not on that injury report.
Correct. Yeah, correct. He was not on the injury report, and he also is not on the list of players getting honored on senior day, which is weird. I actually did get an answer to that. I was told that he opted to not have a senior day ceremony because he had one last year at Tulsa. But he is not expected to come back and play again next season, even though he does have 1 year of eligibility left, technically.
So I know this is speculation, but look, he's on the sideline in street clothes. He's not suspended. He wasn't on the injury report. Now, that doesn't mean he's not injured. He could have gotten injured, and walked through. I hurt myself making coffee a couple weeks ago. Who knows, right? Like, anything can happen. But what if could this be an opt-out situation?
It could be, and I'll ask. I just noticed this seconds before I called in. I had heard rumblings of an injury actually for him earlier in the week. But obviously that's not something you're hearing before without having for sure. So my guess is that probably this was an injury that he it was significant and wanted to not tell Florida about it.
Yeah. Okay. So the injury report obviously is the gospel. That's how we should treat it. Very, very, very truthful. I appreciate them putting out an injury report that is so obviously truthful. So look, Missouri's going to have to score some points today. The obvious answer to that is Connor Bazelak has been playing great football and is the starting quarterback today, which, again, we reported earlier this week we thought was going to be the case. It was met with, I would not say super enthusiasm on the show today.
Yeah, I can't say I'm stunned. I've got the same reaction online. Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not going to try to justify it other than, that's what we even heard during the week, and clearly Connor Bazelak still thinks that he gives the team the best chance to win. I don't know if that's because he feels like he knows the playbook better, he can manage the game better. I don't know what it is. But clearly that's who he's going with. I would certainly expect that he's on a fairly short leash. I think if we see 2 turnovers, that he will be gone, but who knows?
Yeah, so I got that question earlier, and somebody said, what do you do if he I mean, let's say for the sake of argument, Missouri goes 3-and-out pick on their first 2 drives. I mean, if it's that short of a leash, to me, if you're starting him, you just go with him as long as he's healthy. Now, look, obviously, if he throws 3 picks, that's one thing. But, I mean, if he's going out there thinking, I'm 1 play away from getting yanked, I can't imagine that's good.
No, I can't either. And that's what you said earlier in the week, and you said this, and I agree with it, that if I were Eli Greenberg thinking I would start Connor Bazelak this week, I would have come out on Monday and said, look, Connor's our guy. He had a bad day, but we're sticking with him. We told him for the mobility thing. Use that excuse again, but he's our guy. Because that way you at least, send the message to your quarterback who's clearly kind of dealing with some confidence issues that, look, you're not 1 play away from getting removed from the game. So we'll see. I would expect, I don't think, 2 3-outs or, a couple bad early possessions, he could be pulled, but I think, if we get 3 or 4 drives into the game and Mizzou's not getting anything on, or he does have 2 turnovers in the first half or something like that, then that's where I could see him getting made for sure.
Right. The only other one, and I'm sure you've probably tweeted something about this, but I just haven't seen it. The only other guy that seemed to be in question was Hiron White. What's the situation with him?
Yeah, so he's dressed. But I will say that he was dressed last week too, so I don't know if that means anything. Him and Zeke Powell were both out there in draft. So, I would think that if Hiron White can't play and Powell can, they would throw Powell out there at right tackle because Bobby Lawrence is out but it could be a situation if both can't go or both are just kind of around for emergency only that you see the same thing we saw last week, which is Connor Wood at right tackle and EJ and Doma Ogar at right guard. So we'll try to keep an eye on that.
Okay, so just two quick ones. We can confirm that Florida has chosen to show up for this game, right? I mean, we can't confirm if they will play hard, but they are going to play.
They're physically present. Their team is
Okay. Arguable whether that was the case or not. Dan Mullen wearing Florida gear, wearing a Darth Vader costume. What's the situation?
I haven't spotted him specifically, but I feel like I would have spotted him really fast if he was wearing anything other than like Florida attire. Like I don't see him wearing his next school's clothes yet. I don't see him in Halloween costume. So
okay.
I presume he's here. If he is, it is in his normal garb.
So there are no Darth Vaders on the field that you can see.
Unfortunately not. I was really hoping for that, or maybe Drinkwitz dressing up as like Yoda or something, but not yet.
All right, well, I don't know, Mitch. After the Caleb Evans thing, I'm thinking a lot of points. Like, I picked Florida 36-27, and I wouldn't be surprised to see more points than that.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I think that the path for Missouri to win this game is to outscore Florida, which is not out of the question after Florida gave up 52 points to Samford.
Right.
I'm not going to dismiss that possibility. But, yeah, yes, Missouri's defense has been playing better, but I can't see them coming out and totally shutting down Florida unless Florida just, has a bad possession or two early and totally quits or has a bunch of turnovers. But, I think the quarterback run game is still something that, it's going to could cause Missouri issues, and I think that they're just going to be so thin in the secondary that Florida's going to be able to, they're not going to be able to devote as many resources to stopping the run, I don't think, as we've seen in these last couple of games. And if they do, I worry about some of these guys from the secondary being able to hold up one-on-one. So, yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of points scored. I think it might be first 1 to 40 wins. All
right, well, we're going to let you go. I do want to let you know, because you're on the phone in the press box and not in front of your computer, that the following comments came in. Is Mitch calling from a can with a string? Mitch sounds like he's calling out a blue light special, and 40 sounds like a stormtrooper. So excellent connection. Yeah. So
I don't know why that is. Also, I'm sorry for everyone for the bad reception. Hopefully the news at least got conveyed.
So someone also asked if you were calling from space. You were not calling from space, are you?
I wish. That would be probably cooler than this game.
All right, man. Well, appreciate it, Mitch. We'll let you go. We'll talk to you later on. All right, so Mitchell 40 from Faroe Field, the press box. So hey, cell phones are cell phones, guys. But did enjoy the commentary there on where Mitch might have been calling from. But look, I think what he said is the Caleb Evans stuff. I think is big. So just to recap, Mitch has one idea on what they might do. I have another. He said he thinks they'll slide Chris Abrams-Drain outside and put Stacy Brown in at the nickel spot. I think that's certainly possible. What I would do if I were them, I would leave Abrams-Drain at that slot corner spot, and I would put freshman DJ Jackson outside, just because Abrams-Drain has been really good at slot. So to me, if you move him and put Stacy Brown in, you are weakening two positions. Whereas if you just put Jackson in outside, where he has played some this year, I think you're only weakening one. So that's my opinion. Now, I'm sure they'll do some of both, right? But I probably wouldn't take Chris Abrams-Drain out of what he's been doing, where he has been Missouri's best defensive player, to be quite honest, most of this season. I think Isaiah McGuire has probably been the second best. Jalen Carlisle is in that conversation. But I think Abrams-Drain has been Missouri's best defensive player, and that's who I would go with. So the stuff with the Caleb Evans is interesting. If it's just an injury, that's great. It's not great. Obviously, it's not good. You don't want an injury, but that's probably almost the best case scenario, because if it's an opt out or something, you wouldn't think he's there. So I don't know. It would be interesting. But I think what it means is whatever you thought Missouri had to score before, I think they now have to score a little bit more, whether that's 7 points more, 10 points more, whatever. But going in, I thought Missouri maybe needed 35 to win this game. I think maybe they need 42 to win this game. And can they score 40? Look, I don't know. Jared's certainly not confident in Connor Bazelak. But Missouri probably going to have to get a couple turnovers or do something a little bit better than I had thought they were going to have to do before this game. Cam Cameron asking if Dalen Carnell is hurt. I do like the name Darnell Carnell, but it is Dalen Carnell. He's not hurt. I guess he could play today, but look, he's played in one game this year on defense. He's played a little on special teams. But if he hasn't played to this point, I've got to believe the coaches just don't think he's really an option on defense. DJ Jackson's played in like 6 games. I believe Carnell was moved to safety early on. At least I think that's what his dad had said on our message board. So I don't really think Carnell is a guy unless, somehow Jalen Carlisle goes to corner, but I don't really see why that would be the case. Carnell could play. I'm not going to write it off. And could play some, right? A lot of guys could play a little bit more than they were going to play. Maybe just because he doesn't start doesn't mean he doesn't play. But I think the main guy with the Caleb Evans out is probably DJ Jackson, another true freshman he's already burned the red shirt. So obviously that wouldn't be a huge change or anything. I mean, he's probably going to play anyway. He's just going to play more now than he would have played otherwise. Want to take one more look around what's going on in the SEC real quick. Alabama and Arkansas should be just underway. They are no score there. Kentucky beat New Mexico State. Georgia beat Charleston Southern. A&M beat Prairie View. And Mississippi State beat Tennessee State. The closest game of those 4 was Kentucky 56 and New Mexico State 16. So excellent day around the Southeastern Conference. Mizzou and Georgia now just about 23 minutes from kickoff. We're going to hang out with you here maybe another 5 minutes or so. And what I always like to do toward the end is just let's get you start throwing your predictions in. We'll put your predictions up on the screen as we go, as we finish out this show. I don't know, guys. I already picked Florida to win this game. I picked them 36-27. And the reason, very simply, is that this would be Missouri's best win. Like, Missouri hasn't beaten a team this good. And whether Florida is good or not, they still haven't beaten anybody this good. I mean, you'll say South Carolina, and South Carolina beat Florida. Florida's a better team than South Carolina. I understand South Carolina beat them. But this would be Missouri's best win. And so while I think it's possible, I just really am not going to predict it. I think they could win, but I've got a hard time predicting them to win until they go out and do it. So I had picked Florida 36-27 this morning. I think I'm going to make that 41-27 based on Caleb Evans not playing. I think this is a 2-score game for Florida. I could be wrong. That's my guess. That's my prediction. Gary says he doesn't know what to expect except maybe Bazelak not performing well enough to win if the defense can't contain Florida. Jared is going Florida 45-17. P. Richards is going Florida 45-28 and thinks he's high on the 28. Dan Dorr is going Florida 45-24. Freeway Jared going Florida 45, Tyler Beatty 31. So big day for Tyler Beatty there. Interesting that we've gotten 4 predictions. We've now gotten 5 predictions and every single person has picked Florida to score 45 points. That's interesting to me. And every person has had Missouri somewhere between 17 and 30. So that's I don't know, guys. Maybe if Florida ends up with 45, you guys go play the lottery or something. Okay, well, here's somebody going the other way. Nate Tappington says Mizzou 38, Florida 31. So some positivity, a little optimism for Connor Bazelak, maybe. Ted Stepanovich asking for a quick recap. The quick recap is Caleb Evans isn't playing. Connor Bazelak's starting at quarterback. We don't know for sure if Hiron White is playing. and there may be recruiting news on the way, but we don't know. That's the upshot of what has gone on so far. Atheo says it's the last chance for the defense to find dignity. Jim Shell called 31-27 Florida, now thinks it's 38-27 Florida. So yeah, that's where we're standing with the predictions. Again, I'm going Florida 41, Missouri 27 here. Garrett Dollins picked UMKC 56-54. So just want to give you guys a heads up before we sign off here. As always, as we've done all year, shortly after the game ends, I'm going probably 10 to 15 minutes after the game ends, I will be live here with the Boulevard Brewing Company post-game drink. And what that means, what I want you guys to do, hit the like button here and subscribe to the channel. That will give you a push notification when I go live, so that you won't have to just be hanging out here. Because, we think it'll probably be somewhere around 6:30, but we just never know for sure. P. Richards really enjoying your recap of the show, by the way. So, look, we may go live at 6:15, maybe 6:45, who knows. But if you subscribe to the channel, you're going to get a push notification when that happens. If you like the show while you're here, 15 of you guys have already done that, would like some more of you maybe to do it, because what that does is, and I'm not going to explain because I don't understand them, YouTube or Google algorithms or anything, but the more likes that the show gets, the more interaction, the more comments, things like that, the more people see it, the more it spreads the word about what we're doing, the more people watch, the more we can do as we go on. And so we like all of those are good things. And also people that allow us to do a little bit more and have allowed us to do this show all year long, and hopefully will be partners with us on it going forward, the folks at Collin Gentry Law Group. They handle all kinds of legal scenarios and situations. Emily and Nick and Jason and Chip and all the guys and girls down at Collin Gentry Law Group in Jefferson City are eager to help you. Also eagle, but more eager. When life is unfriendly, Collin Gentry. You can get a hold of them on the phone at 573-691-4571 to schedule a consultation. You can also go to their website at callgentry.com. If maybe you're thinking, hey, well, maybe Gabe just knows these guys and maybe they're not any good. They've got some testimonials on their site. They've got some case results on their site. You can do a little more research, and I promise you they are good. They great customer service, big Mizzou fans. They'll talk to you about whatever you want to talk about, but I probably wouldn't call them if you didn't have a legal question. So 573-691-4571. Get in touch with those guys at Collin Gentry. Appreciate their help. Mizzou in Florida, just a little over 15 minutes away. It is on the SEC Network. I'm sure that you guys are going to be watching. We will be back here with the Boulevard Brewing Company post-game drink shortly after. Appreciate you guys being a part of it today. And we will talk to you after the game.